Do you want to just tell us how, what it was growing up like was for you in London and where you grew up?
Yeah, so I grew up in the East End of London in a fashionable place now called Brick Lane. But when I grew up, it was a ghetto. So my parents come there in the 50s and they was Irish immigrants. And being Catholic, they had 11 children.
Yeah.
And so I had a lovely life, school clothed, washed, dressed, church twice a day because I was taught by Catholic nuns.
Yeah.
And then, see, the area I grew up in, it was real poverty. And immigrants from all over the world for hundreds of years come and settled there because it was cheap. You could live there, you could get a room, and it was cheap. And so lots of immigrants settled there. And it had the rag trade. And so people, if you was looking for work and you could run a machine, do a bit of sewing, do a bit of pressing, you'd get a job.
Yeah.
Because they was making all the clothes for the high street stores. And so there was lots of work there. And you had different industries like Truman's Brewery. So it was a poverty, but a lot of good come out of it. But a lot of bad come out of it as well.
I was brought up Catholic. I think I was an altar boy for a bit as well.
I done a bit of that.
Was you?
Yeah, I done a bit of that. It was a way of getting out of school.
Yeah.
Because the church was right next to my school, so
yeah,
it was a way of getting out. But yeah.
So what was did you go through anything that set you off on the wrong path at an early age with any warning signs?
Yeah. So I had a very doting mother, and she was an amazing woman, and she basically looked after the 11 of us.
11?
Yeah, and so she would clothe us like twins. So everyone, in the area that I grew up, and they thought we was all twins because we all looked alike. And she would dress us to the nearest sibling the same.
Yeah.
So me and my brother, the one up from me, we would be wearing the same clothes, same haircut, and we looked like twins, but we was always immaculate. She always looked after us. And then the turning point in my life was the youngest was 18 months old, the oldest was 15, I was 7. And my mum died of leukemia.
Oh, man.
Now no one's feeding me, no one's washing me, and I become feral. And I was very disruptive. I mean, so as a 7-year-old kid, we were sat down, me and my siblings, and we sat around like a table, and we was all sitting there, and an Irish lady, Josie, she was standing in front of the table. She'd just come back from the hospital visiting my mum, because we used to go to the hospital and visit her, and like today with a mask and gown and hats, I mean, I used to stand there, my brothers and that would all be round the bed talking to my mum, and I can just remember looking up thinking, what is going on? I ain't got a clue. I just know that she's not well. And then they told Josie and the person who fathered me, so I can't call him my dad, which you'll find out later. And they were standing in front of the table and they was looking at us and they said, we've got something to tell you. And it was explained that your mum's gone to live with Jesus. And then my sisters, my brothers, they all started crying. And I'm looking at them thinking, what are they crying for? The nuns have been telling us this Jesus, he's a great bloke. He walks on water. He can do things with bread that no one's ever done before. So I'm thinking, he's a great bloke. And then, one by one, they all leave the table, run upstairs, and they're all crying and crying. I don't understand it. I'm looking at them thinking, what's everyone crying for? For what I know about Jesus, I want to go and live with him. And, but that was a real turning point, because a couple of days later, or a week later, I was still going to school every day. And then one day I turned up at school, and the nun, the head teacher, her name was Sister Joan, she said, got me out of the classroom, and she said, we're going to go and pray in my office. I thought, all right, because we'd pray all the time. Do you know what I mean? As you brought up a Catholic, you pray for anything. And but the church was right next to the school, outside the school gates. And she said, we're going to go in my office and pray. So I goes into her office, and one of my brothers is there, and my sister, Kim. And she says, we're going to pray. So we start praying, and the windows, the shutters on the blinds on the windows are shut. Normally she would look out to see the playground to make sure everyone's behaving, and they were shut. And then she walked over to the window, and then she come back. She looked out the window. She come back. She said, we're going to go to church now. Oh, well, all right. So walks across the playground, goes to the church, walks up the steps to the church, goes in the door, and I'm looking, and everyone in my young life is in there. Uncles, aunts, cousins, brothers, sisters, everybody, and the whole school. And then I see a coffin. And that day, I just fell to my knees and I realised what going to live with Jesus meant. Because as an altar boy, I've done services for funerals and weddings and, you know, christenings and then I connected that, hold on a minute, my mum's dead. So from that day onwards, my life it was just so terrible. And up until the age of 15, anywhere I went, I'd walk through a door, I'd push a door, go into a supermarket, I'd be looking for my mum. Because now I know I'm getting a bit old and I know a lot about Jesus, I couldn't work out why he would take a mother away from 11 children, one being 18 months old that need her. And it just messed me up. And I become disengaged. School becomes somewhere to go and eat because they was giving away free food. And no one told me the path of academia and what academia does for you. Yeah. And so it was either go to school or go in a children's home. Well, I was in a children's home and I didn't like it and I ran away from there. I wanted to be with my siblings. You know, I wanted to be with my brothers and sisters because if they was hurting as much as me, and this was I was put in a children's home 2 weeks after my mum died. And so if they was hurting as much as me, I wanted to be with them to help them, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so, and my life, you know what I mean? It just turned so quickly. And the person that fathered me was an alcoholic working in Truman's Brewery, a great place for an alcoholic to work. And he learnt me how to shoplift.
Oh, wow.
And so I remember the first time, and it was like, the first time he taught me, he was in a shop on Whitechapel Road. It was called Lipton's, and it was like a supermarket. And it was a tub of cheese. And I was walking behind him, and he turned and he said to me, I'm going to show you how to shoplift. And I just watched him, and he just put it in his pocket. And so every time I went in the shop, I done it. And but he sees something in me that could help us all survive. As I say, I become very feral. And the first time I was arrested, I was 9 years of age. And at 9, I was committing crime. Where I grew up, had all the Sunday markets. I mean, I don't know if you know why we have Sunday markets. It's because the Jews wouldn't work on a Sabbath, which is a Saturday. So Sunday markets grew up, like Petticoat Lane, Brick Lane, and all the different Sunday markets. And so what used to happen, people used to go shopping, buy loads of stuff, and walk back to their cars and put it in their cars. Well, that took a stone and a smashed window, and you got a few quid. And so we was just following people backwards and forwards from the market, just watching them, you know, and on a Sunday, you know, at 8, 9 years of age, I'm earning great money.
Wow.
I'm earning great money from all leather coats and all sorts of things. And then where I grew up, see, I never knew anyone that went to work at 7 in the morning, come home at 5 and sat around a dinner table and spoke about their day at work. It was non-existent. It didn't happen in my life. Yeah. But I knew people that dressed nice, had nice clothes. They didn't necessarily go to work. They got to live in the way that they got to live in.
Yeah. Leukemia is horrendous. My sister raises money for leukemia charities. When she was she had a baby that was, I think she was 1.5 years old, and she was diagnosed with leukemia. Yeah. So my sister had to give her job up, and she was living in and out of hospitals for 2 years. But fortunately, Great Ormond Street Hospital saved the baby's life. And I went to visit the kid in Great Ormond Street, and there was all these kids with shaved heads, and they had all kinds of different terminal illnesses. Yeah. And my sister said, look, we've got like 80-90% chance. Those kids over there, they're not even going to see Christmas. Yeah. And when I got out of Ormond Street, I was just supposed to just go to the tube and come home. And I couldn't. I ended up walking around London for hours on end. Yeah. My head was just gone. Just thinking, like, how can this happen to, you know? And it just made me really reflect on life.
Yeah. So for a long while, I couldn't celebrate Christmas. You know, when people was going out when they're young, because this happened to me over Christmas. Oh. And so it devastated me. Leukemia, like, it just devastated my life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And the pain from it, do you know what I mean? I mean, to go through it yourself must be terrible. Do you know what I mean? No, I mean, I sometimes I sit there and I think, you know, and it brings a tear to my eye like it has now. Hey, you know you're going to die and you're going to leave 11 kids. What? You must be so strong. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It I can't fathom what would that. I've got kids, and knowing I was going to die and I was going to leave them, and they're all young. It must be. I just don't know. Yeah, it's painful.
It's absolutely brutal, isn't it?
Painful.
I think my sister said for adults it's still 50-50, but for kids now it's advanced, so it's like 80-90% recovery.
Well, see, back then in 74, 75, you had no chance.
No chance.
Yeah.
Really?
It was a death sentence and you ain't getting out of it.
So to go through that at 7, 8 then, that's just traumatized your head in properly.
Yeah.
And now your dad's teaching you how to bloody shoplift. So
on a Thursday night, every Thursday night, I used to have to go to Tesco's in Bethnal Green Road, and I was given, the trolleys the old women pull along, they go shopping with, and a holdall. And I used to have to go there. I'd get a list, but with no money, and I would go there every Thursday night to feed my brothers and sisters. And so I was shoplifting, and I got arrested for that when I was 12, and I'll never forget it. Because I was just blatant, I was just putting it, I didn't get, but I was doing it every week. It was just become my norm. And I'll never forget when they took me to the back room. They wouldn't let me out of the shop. They took me in the back room, and there was a table as long as this, but there was another 4 tables, and they emptied it all out and put it all on the tables. Sorry, and they added it up. It come to £125. If I give you £125 now and said go out and go shopping, you come back with bags full of shopping.
Yeah.
But see, this didn't last us a couple of days. 11 kids. Do you know what I mean? It barely lasted us a week because we didn't know what we was cooking. We just anything, and so I had to replenish it. And then when I got caught for that, I got a ban for Tesco's. Hello, Sainsbury's. So next week it was just Sainsbury's. That's it. I didn't get caught in Sainsbury's, but that's what I had to do. It was survival. And it was, it was feeding my brothers and sisters. And then, but he would always be there with his hand out. And where I grew up, I told you it was the rag trade. And so all the older boys, they're robbing them. So as I get a bit older, now I'm robbing them. So I'm robbing leather factories, any garments, they was there for the taking.
So you're just like going in at night when they're closed?
Yeah, just going at night when they're closed, go through a wall, through a window, through a roof, and just take it all, the cutting equipment, you could sell that, the leather, whatever it was. But it was like a progression. Everyone was doing it.
Did you have a regular fence?
Oh, anyone would buy anything. Yeah, in the East End you could sell anything anywhere.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you remember when black bags, I don't know if you remember. So black bags are actually an invention in my lifetime.
Really?
And there was a dustbin strike. And so Tower Hamlets Council, they used a certain place to store all these boxes. And so you couldn't, but you had nothing, you couldn't use the chutes, you couldn't do nothing, but they was keeping hold of the black bags. So I found a way in there, as you do, and now I'm selling black bags to store holders, shop holders, restaurants. Now everyone's getting black bags. But I made a good living out of selling black bags to people during the dustbin strike.
So are you looking up to the wrong people as your idols at that age?
So the charity I set up is called Product of a Postcode. So people say, oh, you're a product of your environment and all that, but it's smaller than that. It's your postcode. It's the people that live around you. And so that's your brothers, friends and of the family, teachers, everyone has an input into you as a young kid. And so what the person who fathered me seeing me, older people that's involved in crime are now seeing in me. I don't care. I've got no fear. There's nothing I won't do to get a pound note. And so one day I was about 14 and 3 blokes that I knew, they was armed robbers. And so they was out getting a pound note. And so one day they called me over, they was in a van and they said to me, "Gal, come here." So I went over. They said, "Get in the van, we've got a bit of work for you." Touch. At the time you're telling me about a pound note, that's all it is. Because once upon a time in my life, if you told me there was money there, it actually belonged to me. In my head, I knew it belonged to me because you told me about it. I just got to go and pick it up. So I gets in this van and we head towards the city. So I lived like 2 minutes from the city. So the city is the banking area. And so it's like Mile End. You understand Mile End? So that's the first mile from the city gates, because there were 7 gates, Mile End. But I lived half a mile between the city gates and Mile End. And so we went into the city, and I'm in the back of this van, and there's 2 in the front, there's 1 in the back with me. The driver looks at his watch and he goes, in 2 minutes' time, a security van's going to pull up, right? We want you to go over there. He knows you're coming. Just go over there, do whatever you got to do, and just take the sacks. It was sacks at the time. I said, yeah, all right, fair enough. So,
were you armed or anything?
I was 14 years of age. I'm going to headbutt the geezer. Right? So I get out of the van and I'm walking across the street, and the geezer opens up the chute, takes the sacks out, and he just turns to the pavement, and I hear, "Go!" And I thought, who's calling my name? Why someone calling my name? Go, go! And I turned, man, I went, get here, get here. So I went, what am I going to do? Get here, get here. So I thought, I better do what I'm told. So I went back to him. I said, what's happening? He went, get in the back of the van. So I got in the back of the van, and they've gone to each other. He's crazy. He's got more bottle than a 30-year-old man. Right? So I said, what's happening? They said, no, we're going somewhere else. That was a test. All right. So he goes in the van, and then we're driving along, and the driver said, hold his ears and his eyes. And they hold my ears and my eyes, and they're asking people for directions. So the last time I get a view, we're going over Tower Bridge. Now we're going into South London. Completely different world to me. And we drive around South London for a while, and the van pulls up, and they've let me look out the window of the window screen. And to my left, there's like a little office block. And to my right, there's a helicopter. I'm like, what the fuck? So they said, right, Gal, what we're going to do is we're going to go in, get the pilot, we're going to bring him out, he's going to take us to the bit of work, and that's what we're getting away with. I'm like, oh my God, these people are crackers, right? So 2 of them go over to the office block, and they say to me, when we get him out, when we're in the helicopter, you come running over. I'm like, okay. So they go into this office block, and these 2 blokes come out. They've got a pilot. This is a pilot. He's got all the gear on, everything, white shirt. And one of them's on this shoulder, and one of them's on this shoulder. And they walk him over, and they put him in the helicopter. And then they go, Gal. Well, my feet didn't touch the floor. I think I hovered. I was thinking, Jesus Christ, what are they doing? These are mad. I know they're nuts anyway. And so he gets in the helicopter, put the headphones on. He starts the engine up, and they look. So one of them's in the front. The pilot's in. We're in the back, and the one in the front, he looks at the pilot, and he says, everything all right, mate? So he says, yeah. So he looks at me, he said, where do you want to go, girl? I said, I just want to go home. I've had enough. Get me out of here. So they said to the pilot, what, Chapel, please, mate? They was just doing it for fun. They've nicked loads of money from somewhere and just hired an helicopter. And I'm their bit of fun for the afternoon. But they see I had bottle, and I didn't care. And so after that, they've got nice watches on, they've got nice clothes on, they're driving nice cars, and now they're giving me bits of work.